Welcome back to the Move Better podcast. Today I have with me Karin Ravalese, who is a movement specialist in Connecticut, and she owns, I just lost it, Revolt.
Revolt and
Karin,
move.
I'm going to Revolt and Move. I'm like,
Yeah,
what's
that's
with
okay.
that? 2 seconds later. And Karin also works with her sister Cheryl of Healing Heart Nutrition. And today we're going to talk about using breath work for spinal stability and core stability, building your core. I'm so glad to have you here, Karin. You and I talk a lot, and we share a passion for movement and creating quality movement and for breathing along with that. And so thank you so much for being here. Introduce yourself. Tell me how you got started in doing, how you started Revolt and Move, and how you got into doing this work.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here. Well, I first kind of started getting involved where I really wanted to learn the anatomy and kind of do the deep dive and, just more or less trying to figure out what my problem was. I had some neck pain, and that was kind of what was really driving it. I was preparing for a certification at the time, and I had a couple of people looking at it, and they're like, no, everything looks like it's fine. Movement looks great. Keep doing what you're doing. And, but I still had that annoying neck pain, and I'm like, see, something's just not right. I know I must be moving incorrectly or something like that. So someone had referred me, to Dr. Kathy Dooley, who, and, she's a co-founder of Immaculate Dissection. And, she's also a lead instructor for neurokinetic therapy. So I started talking with her, working with her, and, just kind of training under her, and really starting to do the deep dive on the anatomy, and starting to learn, the importance of the breathing, and how the core stabilization plays into everything. And I really just feel like it really changed how I thought about my own personal training, doing martial arts for so many years, and just looking at things from a completely different lens, and just kind of taking a step back, and, I started seeing the benefit of it. And, I wanted to be able to, share that with other people that may be struggling with the same things.
Yeah. So I'll back up. I know with the ID courses and NKT, we really focus a lot on breathing, and how that's kind of the basis for any movement. If you're not breathing right, there's a whole lot of other stuff that potentially could affect movement as well. But if you're not breathing right, it's going to affect everything you do. How did you come to, how did that help your neck? And is your neck doing better now?
Oh yeah, definitely. And, it's like with anything, I'm sure you can relate to this, we're never like a one and done, and, so what I was doing was I was using my neck, for my abs a lot. So, I was just very neck dominant, always trying to get up with the neck, and, just not really, paying attention to, how much it was really, playing into a lot of my movements. So, once I was aware of it, I started being a little bit more conscious, and, I was able to kind of change, the pattern, and, break free a little bit of it.
We talked a little bit just before about we were doing some martial arts, and how you kind of fought against doing the breath work, but then change your mind. Can you dive into why it changed your mind, and how that drives you today, and in everything that you do?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, this was kind of huge. Part of it with me too, it was the understanding behind why I was doing something, and not just kind of floundering around and just, doing a bunch of different techniques, and, hoping that it's going to work, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the people that you probably are working with kind of feel like that. They're just going to mindlessly stretch or do different exercises, and no one really kind of tells them why they're doing it, or they think they need to do it a certain way. So I remember we were going over 4-second inhale, 8-second exhales, and and I remember laying there doing it, and I'd be like, it's so boring, I hate this, why are we doing this? I already know how to breathe. I just want to work out. And I never knew the importance of it. And I think that that's what, and even sometimes I've talked to people and they're like, oh, I already know how to breathe. If I didn't know how to breathe, I'd be dead right now, and why am I wasting my time doing this? And how is this helping me, type of a thing. So that's kind of like where I was at. I just kind of wanted to just get moving and get going. Like I didn't want to waste my time with the breathing, not realizing that the breathing is what actually kickstarts everything for me, because that's what we did when we were a child. That's how we learned how to get up and walk and move around and be able to stabilize our spine, that we did it through breathing. So I had no idea about that. I don't know if I knew about it. I just never really thought about it until I actually started to learn about it. And I was fascinated with it. And I said to myself, wow, this is something really worth working on. And, you can tell when your breathing's off, and it's like, even if you're having a stressful day or something like that, that can really throw you off too. So I think sometimes it's important to go back to that, and it's not going to hurt you. Let's put it that way. And it's not a huge investment, in time.
People frequently, they're like, all right, I got this, let's go. I'm like, well, actually you don't. So let's correct it. And then we can move on. And I struggle because I know people, they don't, nobody wants to sit there and just breathe. They can't see, why that's essential into their core, and how it helps it helps in everything that they're going to do moving forward. And until they can own their breath in developmental positions or in everyday life and not compensate and use your neck, it's going to be hard for you to build strength and move on and reduce your pain too. So how is the question of the day? How does breathing improve core stability? Like, I know you talked about babies start to move and that's the basis of core, but can you dive into like mechanics a little bit and how that feeds into core stability and spinal stability?
Sure. We have the thoracic diaphragm, right, which is our primary muscle of breathing. And it's, located in this area here and, where the ribs are. So you have really, really crucial, important abdominal muscles that are attached to ribs as well. So if your diaphragm is not able to really go through its proper ranges of motion, it can cause, constriction in that area. And then it can also, mess with your abdominal muscles. So you won't be able to get like, when you're breathing, when you inhale, the sides of the ribs are supposed to go out and then they're supposed to come back in when you exhale. So if you're kind of stuck in one position over the other, then it's really, really hard to, be able to move and build that strength and stability. Like it's almost like you're tight. So you're constricted here. So something's gonna jam up down or up or down the chain. That's where somebody might feel like, oh my God, my hips are tight, and they feel like they got to keep stretching their hips all the time, or they have shoulder pain, or like in my case, neck pain and stuff like that. Because something in that area is just maybe tighten up and not able to really be able to go through the proper ranges of motion. And if you watch a baby breathe, they really have that nice kind of expansion going out to the side and coming back in. You don't really see a baby doing a sit up or stretching or anything like that. Not that I'm saying stretching's bad, but sometimes, maybe just doing a little bit of breathing, for a couple of minutes or so might just take the edge off. If you're feeling tight.
I think training. So we'll talk a little like as you inhale, your diaphragm has to drop down, and that is what kind of pushes everything out like an inner tube around your waist and your back. Mm-hmm. So you have that nice expansion. I think a lot of times, and I still struggle with this a little bit, but I used to want to hold my stomach in all the time. And so I wasn't taking a full diaphragmatic breath because I wasn't allowing my abdominals to go through their full range. I always suck my stomach in. And then I get more upper respiratory and more neck, and compensating that way. So learning how to allow your belly to belly back, abdomen, like obliques and all around to move through your inhale, and then your exhale can help to. So when you exhale, your abdominals help to push the air out, your diaphragm goes up, and that's when the belly goes in. So starting to train that, I think, as important because, like you said, as a baby, it's kind of automatic. They have this nice, beautiful belly breath, and they're not fighting against it. And as we get older, we start to, think more aesthetics, or we compensate. We get into, we sit all day and we don't move and take that. So, I think that's like knowing those mechanics and like practicing it is key to keeping us going and building that stability also.
Yeah, definitely. Just being conscious of not like raising the shoulders. Cause like, I feel like when, if you tell somebody to take a breath in, like, feel like the first thing, like I've seen people go like that, like raise the shoulders, and it's like, nope, just relax the shoulders. And then you could just kind of put your hands on the side here and just, try to calmly like inhale and exhale. And, that's usually different. Like I've had a couple people be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. I can't believe I'm raising my shoulders. Like they didn't realize they were raising their shoulders. And then once it was brought to their attention, they were like, oh my God. I even had a couple people when I was working in insurance company. I had a couple of people that I was working with, and we were talking about this stuff, and they're like, oh, I'm so happy you told me, because I never knew I was doing that, so. And I think that's another thing with a lot of people that are sitting at a desk all day too. They're not really conscious of their breathing, or they're holding their breath, during the day, and like, like going, and stuff like that. So I think like that kind of, also contributes to it as well.
I think, I think that's a key takeaway, that the reason that, one of the top reasons to do some breath work, whatever you can put it into your day, is because most of the time we run around and we're not conscious of the movements that we're doing, how we're compensating, or whether it's faulty movement or just not paying attention to how, like, we don't have to think about breathing, because if we don't breathe, we don't live, so it's an automatic response. But breathing efficiently and breathing correctly actually helps to, we have to think about, if we don't stop and think about it, we end up compensating, and we don't take our muscles, and which is diaphragm is one, through its full range of motion, or abdominals through the full. How does breathing affect spinal stability? Maybe dive into some anatomy, and we'll start with spinal stability. Then I also want to talk about digestion and sympathetic response and all that stuff. But like, can you talk a little bit about anatomy and?
Sure. Well, the biggest thing with the neck is, the diaphragm gets its innervation from the neck, from that cervical area there. So if your neck's not in really good position, you can actually kill the nerve supply to the diaphragm. So that's a huge problem, right? So you're actually, not able to get the full juice of it. So, it might not even be the fact that it's super tight in through here. It could be the fact that maybe your neck is in a bad position, or even your head position could be as well, because you have the vagus nerve, right? Which you just talked about digestion, with the diaphragm having the three hiatuses, the three holes, and one of them is the esophagus. And you have the vagus nerve that also goes through the esophagus, the vagus nerves. So if your head position is kind of wonky and stuff like that, you can also, kind of clamp down on that area and, mess with your digestion and, just all kinds of things, your circulation, blood pressure management. So all of these things that can be affected by, not having, your neck or your head in a good position. Usually if your head and your neck isn't really in the greatest position, it can obviously affect your back, and we have all our nerves and our arteries and our veins back there. So it's important to want to, really try to keep good, to be able to have the good spaces in between. You don't want to have too much of someone going back, especially with your cheerleaders. A lot of times they may really extend back too much and kind of like clamp down on that area. And if you're going back too much, you can, cause, with the ribs and all of that. So there's just different things that can happen depending on the person. And, just you could just put yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage and stuff. And that doesn't mean that that anybody's broken and there's anything wrong with them. And I feel like, everybody can benefit from, really trying to, better this structure. I mean, everybody can. It's not that we can't. I think you have such a great, they're very lucky to be working with you because, you're very educated in this topic. And I think you being able to help them a lot with their breathing and their movement combined together. So.
Well, thank you. And same back at you. So, the three hiatuses you talked about right there, there's three holes. Hiatus is a hole that the esophagus, the vagus nerve, and the aorta run through. So if you don't have, that's right in the center of your body, right? Your diaphragm sits at the lower parts of your ribs, which is the lower part of the thoracic spine, which is your middle back, and right at where it where it meets the lumbar spine. So we call it T12 through L2, and
L3 too.
That's where it kind of and L3, and everything kind of comes through that area. So, and if it gets restricted, if you're not allowing the relaxation of the diaphragm, which happens on your exhale, you may have consistent pressure on any of those structures that run right through there. And so, the aorta feeds the blood supply to the legs and the rest of the body, but the lower portion, the legs, and your esophagus is what goes into your stomach. And so if you have acid reflux, that could be a symptom of that. And if you have, this is good for me to be practicing and saying, and vagus nerve. So, there's compression on the vagus nerve that doesn't let up. It's always going to be, a constant kind of fight or flight response, and not getting allowing the rest and digest and the rest of your body to move. So super important in getting the diaphragm to move appropriately. Combine that with the abdominals then contract and push the air out, like that helps the diaphragm to go on stretch when your abdominals contract. So you're building stability at the same time.
Mm-hmm. They're very, they're antagonists with each other, but I feel like that they are very complementary of each other too. So they help each other because the muscles on the side of you also, they are primary muscles too, but they're helping you with when you exhale and stuff like that. So, supporting your stomach and, supporting your stability, but it is also there to help you like for coughing and sneezing and all of that stuff I'm sure you may have heard of this before, like where sometimes people blow their back out when they sneeze, so it's like sometimes all it takes is just like that one time where you leave yourself vulnerable. And, that's when sometimes you can get caught. And it's no different with an athlete. So a lot of times they're pushing through things, they're like, oh, this is part of the sport. I know sometimes with martial arts, that's kind of like the attitude too, like, oh, that's part of, the sport. Like, you're bound to hurt your knee, or you're bound to have a knee surgery, or, of course your back's going to hurt, stuff like that. So I just think that's even a lot of it too, sometimes even with the pressure of, oh, what are you, baby or something like that,
Yeah. And, recognizing like just because you play a sport doesn't mean that you have to get an injury, or just because you do an activity doesn't mean you have to have an injury. If you learn how to move and you build the stability and you build you take your body through the motions and you build that stability up, you can reduce the risk of a lot of injuries.
Definitely. You just try to put yourself in the best position that you can, and just, sometimes you're bound to have a bad day, you're bound to have a good day. We can't always control how we're going to feel too, because if we are having an off day, that will, I could 100% speak, from experience on that one is, having like some stress going on and stuff like that, and really having it affect my movement. And so that's another thing to consider. I don't think people consider that either. So that's why breathing's important. Not that I'm going to keep, talking about it, but I think it's worth, even if somebody could just maybe like, even at night, like before they go to bed or something, just spend like 5 minutes, set a timer, and, just try to like relax, especially before you go to bed. I think probably a lot of people are on their phones, they're watching TV at night or they're on their computer, try to do a little bit of a nighttime routine, like, try to, before you go to bed, shut all the devices down and, go in a different room and set a timer and, try to breathe for 4 seconds in and 8 seconds out. And you might probably find you might sleep a little better if if you try to be a little bit consistent about it. Start somewhere, even if it's 2 minutes.
Exactly. Is there a tip that you give to help people get to that 8-second exhale? Because I find people's I've been doing a 3-second in, 1-second pause, 6-second exhale, trying to get, the goal is to get at least double your on the exhale and then your inhale. I like the 4 and 8, but I find people struggle with taking that long exhale. Is there any good cues that you use?
Well, what I've done before in the past is I will bring you down to 3/6s, because I'll tell you, I was helping my father with this, and he had a hard time, like he couldn't do the 4/8s. So even the 3/6s were hard for him in the beginning. So I even brought him down to 2/4s. And just, it's hard to get the rhythm. You know what I mean? Sometimes. So the way that I had the timer set, it was like, for example, like say it was going off every 2 seconds. It was going off every 2 seconds. So you had to kind of try to learn how to budget that amount. So in the first couple times you're doing it, it's hard because you're like, wait a minute, you're like, you might inhale way too much, and then you're just like blowing it all out type of thing. And like, oh God, I don't have enough exhale. So it's like, the more you do it, you're going to be able to get it. So if the 4/8s are like too stressful, because you don't want the person to be like, defeat the whole purpose, because the whole point of doing it is to get them to relax. So if they can't do it, then you got to drop the number down, and they'll get it. Because then my father was going to 3/6s and he ended up eventually going to 4/8s, doing that. But it was like, you had to get the rhythm. Like even myself, like I remember when I first kind of like started doing it, like I was like doing the 5/10s and stuff. And I was like, it was weird. Like you had to get the rhythm. You had to try to learn how to budget, how much inhale you needed and how much exhale you needed. And it's just a matter of having the patience and working with yourself, that's really what it comes down to. And I really believe it's worth doing, and you're going to see a lot of benefits from it. I mean, even somebody who might have poor digestion, like my uncle, for example, he was talking to me about this, and I had recommended to him to do some 4-second inhales and 8-second, and then going to the 3/6s if that was too hard, because I said, you know what, maybe before you eat something, do a couple of those, because that kind of like kickstarting a little bit, so those are little tricks type of thing,
Like working it into your day, setting a timer for, and
definitely working into your day.
Learning how to budget it. And if you are struggling with it and it's making you more anxious, or you're struggling to breathe, or stressing you out for whatever reason, regress it. It's always okay. And do you find I find a lot that people are like, okay, how much do I do and when do I do it? I'm like, well, aim for this. And if you can do more, great. And if you need to do less, do that. Like, do you find that I find people struggle with that. They're like, what do you mean? Like, it's not a set number of reps. How are people responsive to you on that? And how do you?
I've had people ask me like, what do you like, how many times should I do this or something? And I'm like, just try to do it throughout the day, but do it when you need it. Because, if you feel like any kind of annoyances or nuisances or something like that, then you would do it. But I think the breathing is great to try to do at night. Because it kind of gets you. And I'll tell you too, Laura, to be honest with you, there's been days when I don't do something and I can feel it. Like when I go to bed, like I might not have as good of a night's sleep as I had like on other nights. And then, just waking up in the morning sometimes and just feeling like unmotivated or off. Like it's so funny. Like I've gotten myself to the point where if I don't do it, like I can see the difference in myself right away. And I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I can't miss.
Yeah.
So that's another thing
That's
about
so
it.
that,
When you start
yeah.
doing it, you pencil it into your daily life. When you don't do it, you're gonna feel
Start to
it.
notice it. Right.
Yeah. So
And this is an easy thing. It's not like you're adding, I got to do my laundry every day or I got to vacuum every day. It's an easy thing for myself. My Fitbit has a thing that's like you can check your stress response or whatever, and it gives you 2 minutes to check in and just breathe. And it's 2 minutes a day, at nighttime before I go. I usually do it at night before I go to bed, just because I know that that's a consistent time that I can do it. So pick a time that's consistent for you. And and now it's becoming a habit. And I'm like, oh, I miss it if I don't do it. And I do think it helps me sleep better. I think I've been sleeping a lot better, just by working on that. And I'm not even necessarily thinking about the speed or the length of my breathing, but I'm just kind of paying attention to my breathing. Like, am I breathing? Am I holding my breath? How was my day? And am I exhaling? And at the end of it, I'm taking that longer exhale, and my heart rate comes down, and all of that kind of it prepares me for bed. And I actually do it in bed because I'm one of those people. I'm on my computer and doing my stuff right until like, oh shoot, I forgot to do the dishes. Got to go do the dishes, and now I'm just gonna go to bed. So I know that's a very common thing, but take that time, whether you have your watch or not, just go to sleep and just take a couple of breaths and just see how are you breathing today, and that start to. I think that's a key thing. The other thing with breathing is like it really starts to tune you into your, what is your body doing? Like so often we run through life and we don't pay attention as to how are we moving, where are we holding tension, and we let things relax and we just go. And so when you focus on your breathing, you have to kind of check in with yourself and see, like, are things moving in the right way? And is this, or am I holding tension somewhere? And just being aware of where we're at can make a huge difference in how you function through the day.
Definitely. I notice it a lot too when like if I'm moving, when I'm doing certain activities, if I'm off a little bit, I can tell where I'll lose my balance. That's where it comes into play, like we were talking earlier with the core stability and the spinal support. I'll feel it and I'll be like, oh God, you gotta be kidding me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so tell me what you guys have going on. You and Cheryl have going on. Like, talk to me a little bit about what's coming next for you. I know you have an event coming up, and you guys are working. You have a Facebook group.
Yep, we have a Facebook group. My sister has been. She's had her own business for. It's been about a couple of years now, so about a year and a half, and she's really good with she's got the group and stuff like that. So we're both kind of combining together. We're posting, trying to add value to the people that are in the group. She's doing more like the emotional eating type of component. She's been a coach for so many years, and she's a registered dietitian. And not that she's my sister, but she's wonderful at that. She's also an excellent cook. So not only does she's a registered dietitian where she can give you great advice, help you with any kind of behavioral issue you may have with your eating. She also knows how to cook. So she can help you make the food taste better, because most people, if they think they're going to go see a registered dietitian, they're like, oh, I got to eat, cardboard all the time. That's not the case. And, we just, every time we've done something together, we've been really successful. We started martial arts together many years ago, and we just have always been tight. We're a tight family.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking forward to what we're going to be able to do, how we're going to be able to really add some value to people's lives. And so I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to be a good thing.
Cool. What's the name of your Facebook group?
Eat. Oh God, isn't that terrible? Oh God, Jesus. Eat. Is it breathe, move, and eat better for the emotional eater? Or eat, breathe,
Cool.
and move better for the emotional eater.
Perfect. I'll put a link for that in the show notes. So if
Okay.
anyone wants to join that, you know, I'm in there also, and they do provide some great information. And I know it's just going to keep going as you move forward. So how can people reach you and connect with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing and all the stuff?
Okay. They can, feel free to email me. My email is krav7@icloud.com. I'm on Facebook, Karin Ravalese, and I also have a profile that I set up for Revolt and Move. So that is also there. You have Healing Heart Nutrition, which is my sister's company. And so any one of those, you'll be able to get a hold of me. And feel free, send me a message if you'd like, and you just want to talk and, tell me what your biggest obstacle is. I'd love to hear about it.
And I encourage you to do so because Karin has a wealth of knowledge, not just on breathing, but on how we move and incorporating that into our everyday life and helping you move better and feel better. So definitely go check and reach out to Karin. Thank you so much for being here today. I love, both you and I love talking all the breathing and movement. And, I think we've come from a great community with NKT and with ID. And, it's, I think all this stuff carries over into everything. So thank you. We could sit and talk forever and brainstorm stuff together. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone for listening today. I hope you have a great day. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out and take life one step at a time. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you, Laura.